The wood scraped raw against my back. Dust filled my mouth, thick and choking. It was so dark, so heavy, like the earth itself was pressing down, hungry. My fingers clawed at the dirt floor, useless. Above me, the crawlspace door slammed shut. Like a coffin lid. Then the scraping started. Metal on wood. Nails. They were nailing me in, from the outside. Panic ripped through me, cold and sharp. I screamed, but the sound died in the thick, rotting air. Outside, the silence was absolute. No birds. No wind. Just the terrible, slow tap, tap, tap of the hammer. They knew I was here. They'd known all along. This wasn't my house. It was theirs. And they wanted it back. 4 months earlier, the house was cheap. Too cheap. A steal, the agent said, her smile too wide, too white against the endless green gloom of the Washington forest. Perfect for a young professional, she chirped, waving her manicured hand at the squat, 1960s box nestled among ancient firs. Quiet. Private. Her eyes didn't quite meet mine. I saw only the price tag, and the short drive to my new job at the gleaming headquarters of Viridian Global Industries. Viridian owned half the state. Mining. Logging. Their logo was everywhere, a green slash like a knife wound. This house? A tiny speck in their vast shadow. My escape from city rent. My fresh start. But the quiet wasn't peaceful. It was thick. Suffocating. Like the trees drank sound. Nights were black ink, broken only by the scuttling of raccoons or the distant hoot of an owl. Uneventful, I told myself. Peaceful. Until the smell came. Not just damp. Worse. Like wet fur left to rot. Like something crawled deep into the earth and died. It seeped from the vents, a cold, clinging stench that turned my stomach. Viridian's employee handbook promised comprehensive relocation support. I called their hotline. A bored voice told me to check the crawlspace for leaks. Standard procedure. The access hatch was on the side of the house, hidden by overgrown ferns. A small, dark mouth in the concrete foundation, barely big enough to squeeze through. I knelt. My flashlight beam cut the gloom. Dust motes danced. Cobwebs hung like tattered lace. The smell was stronger here, earthy and decayed. I crawled forward. The rough ground scraped my knees. Insulation drooped from the floor joists like gray entrails. Then I saw it. Tucked deep into a corner, near a thick support beam, was a little nest. Not messy. Not abandoned. Ordered. A sleeping bag, tightly rolled. A dark hoodie, folded neatly beside it. An empty can of beans, a cheap metal spoon still resting inside. And a notebook. Plain black cover. My blood turned to ice. This wasn't old trash. This was lived in. Recently. The spoon gleamed faintly in my flashlight beam. I reached for the hoodie with a trembling hand. Felt the pocket. A crumpled receipt. I smoothed it out under the light. Gas Station 7. Viridian Employee Fuel Outpost. Dated just last week. 15 miles away. The notebook felt cold. I scrambled back out into the weak daylight, clutching it. Inside, most pages were blank. Then, near the middle, shaky handwriting. Grocery lists. Canned beans. Matches. Water. Crude maps of the woods around my house, with strange symbols I didn't recognize. A list of names. Some Viridian executives I vaguely knew from company emails, with numbers beside them. Dates? Amounts? My heart hammered against my ribs. Then I saw it. My schedule. Monday. 10:30 p.m. arrives. Lights off 1 a.m. Wednesday. 10:15 p.m. arrives. Kitchen light 12:45. Saturday. No arrival. Stays inside. It detailed my comings and goings. My routines. Down to the minute. The last entry. Tuesday, move. Tomorrow. Someone wasn't just living under my house. They were watching me. Timing me. Waiting. For Tuesday. Panic exploded. Viridian. I called their dedicated security line. The one plastered on every internal memo. Threat on company-associated property. I gasped. Not the police. Viridian. They owned the security. They were the law out here. 2 men arrived within the hour. Not police. Viridian corporate security. Sharp black uniforms. No insignia. Cold eyes. Efficient. They searched the crawlspace. Swept the perimeter with devices that beeped softly. They found nothing. The nest was gone. Only dust remained. Old squatter, the taller one said, his voice flat. Cleared out. Probably saw the light. He nodded at my flashlight, still on the ground. Secure the hatch. Standard procedure. He handed me a heavy-duty Viridian-branded padlock. Company policy. We patrol these woods. You're safe. His partner just stared at me. Expressionless. Their dismissal was absolute. Final. Like closing a file. Safe? I didn't feel safe. I felt violated. So I bought Viridian's top-tier security package. Motion-activated floodlights, blinding white. A high-resolution Viridian Guardian trail cam, linked directly to my phone and their network. I installed them myself the next day. My fingers fumbled. The lights glared like prison spotlights. The camera lens watched the crawlspace hatch like a dark, unblinking eye. Night 1, silence. Empty footage. Night 2, silence. Empty footage. Night 3, my phone screamed at 2:48 a.m. Viridian security alert. Motion detected, perimeter rear. The footage loaded. Grainy night vision. Green shapes. The crawlspace hatch creaked open. The figure crawled out. Not toward the trees. Toward my back door. Dark clothes. Hood pulled low, shadowing the face. They stood perfectly still on my porch. Staring at the door. At me. Sleeping inside. 5 minutes. An eternity. Then slowly they turned. Looked directly into the lens of the Viridian camera. The hood's shadow was absolute darkness. No features. Just void. Then they crawled back under the house. Gone. I didn't breathe. Didn't blink. Cold sweat soaked my shirt. They knew about the camera. They looked at it. Viridian. I called their emergency line again, my voice shaking. They came back. They looked at the camera. You have the footage. The same 2 men arrived at dawn. Impatient. System glitch. The tall one snapped, checking his tablet. Wildlife. Your camera feed shows nothing. He showed me the screen. Last night's footage, empty woods. Stop wasting company resources. The patrols see nothing. They left without another word. Viridian saw nothing. Viridian showed me nothing. I fled. Packed a bag. Drove to the city. Rented a tiny, bright apartment surrounded by noise and people. I put the house on the market immediately. Fire sale price. Viridian's own realty arm, Haven Properties, handled the listing. Days passed. Weeks. No calls. No emails. No views registered. It was like the house didn't exist. Like Viridian had erased it from the world. Finally, a call. From Haven Properties. Potential buyer wanted an immediate viewing. Today. Alone. No agent needed. Urgent. Relief flooded me, weak and dizzy. Maybe Viridian found someone. Maybe this nightmare was ending. I drove back. The forest closed in like walls. My relief died at the driveway. The blinding Viridian motion light? Smashed. Glass glittered on the ground. The expensive Guardian trail cam? Gone. Vanished. Only the severed mount remained. And the crawlspace hatch? It wasn't just closed. It was sealed. Thick, new nails hammered deep into the frame from the outside, pinning it shut against the foundation. Ice filled my veins. Someone wanted me to see this. Wanted me to know. They were still here. They had taken Viridian's own security apart. They had nailed the door shut. For what? To keep something out? Or to keep something in? I never brought it back. It was still inside the house. Proof. Evidence of the watcher. The schedule. The names. Viridian's names. I had to get it. Had to show someone. Anyone. The front door key turned smoothly. Viridian locks. The house smelled stale. And underneath, that smell. What for? Stronger. Coming from inside now. My footsteps echoed. The notebook lay where I'd left it on the kitchen counter. I snatched it. turned to leave. A sound. Faint. Muffled. Coming from beneath the floorboards. Scratch, scratch, scratch. Like claws on wood. Directly below the kitchen. Below me. The crawlspace. But the hatch was nailed shut from the outside, wasn't it? The scratching stopped. Silence. Thick. Waiting. Then, a low, wet gurgle. Like mud bubbling. It rose through the floor. Vibrated in my bones. My breath hitched. Just run. But the notebook. Viridian. The names. I had to know. I didn't think. Fear, and a desperate, stupid anger, drove me. I grabbed a crowbar from the garage. Viridian branded. Part of the homeowner emergency kit. I walked to the side of the house. To the nailed-shut hatch. The nails were big. Not new. They looked old. Pitted. Like they'd been there for years. I just saw them. Panic blurred my vision. I jammed the crowbar under the lip of the hatch. Levered. Wood groaned. One nail popped with a shriek. Then another. The hatch loosened. The smell poured out. Overwhelming. A physical wave of decay and damp earth. And something else. Animal. Bug. I pulled the hatch open. Darkness yawned. Impenetrable. The stench made my eyes water. I clicked on my phone's flashlight. The beam weak and trembling. I had to see. Had to know what was nailed in. For who? The darkness wasn't empty. It was alive. Thick, cold, smelling of wet earth and something older, something rotten deep underground. That gurgle came again, right beside my ear. Wet, hungry. The rough sackcloth scraped my arm, like dried skin. Panic is a wild animal. It ripped through my mind, shredding thought. I kicked, flailed. My free leg connected with something hard and unyielding. The support beam. Pain shot up my shin, sharp and bright. The iron grip on my ankle didn't loosen. It tightened. Cold bit deep into my flesh, burning like frostbite. No. My fingers clawed uselessly at the packed dirt floor. My phone's light still spun wildly where it fell, casting jerking, monstrous shadows that leaped and twisted across the low ceiling. In one stuttering flash, I saw it again. The shadow. Not a man shape. A spreading stain, like oil on water, flowing up the beam beside me. It had no face. Only a deeper blackness where a head might be. A void that drank the light. The pulsed. The gurgle became a low, wet hiss. Words? Sounds pushed through mud and decay. Siste! I screamed. A raw, tearing sound lost in the suffocating dark. I twisted onto my back, kicking my trapped leg with every ounce of strength. My free foot slammed into the flowing shadow. It felt like kicking tar, dense, resistant, impossibly cold. The cold shot up my leg. A numbness that spread like poison. The grip on my ankle shifted. Pulled harder. Dragging me deeper into the corner. Towards that stained sackcloth bundle. The spinning phone light caught the protruding white thing again. Not a small bone. A finger bone. Human. Delicate. Horror choked me. That wasn't an animal nest. The shadow flowed faster, coating the beam. Dripping down towards my face. The hissing grew louder, forming syllables that vibrated in my skull, not my ears. These nose? Viridian. The name was a spark in the terror. The names. The security men who showed me nothing. Who dismissed me. Who sold me this grave. Rage, white-hot and desperate, exploded through the fear. They knew. I stopped fighting the pull. For one insane second, I went limp. The shadow thing hesitated. The hissing paused. My trapped leg was almost numb. With a roar ripped from my gut, I used every muscle to roll, twisting violently towards the dragging force, not away. My free hand shot out. Fingers scrabbling through the dirt where my phone spun. They closed around cold metal. The crowbar. I didn't think. I swung it blindly, wildly, towards the source of the grip on my ankle. It connected with a sickening, wet thud. Like hitting rotten wood. A shriek tore through the crawlspace. Not human, not animal. A sound of pure, ancient fury that scraped my bones. The icy grip vanished instantly. I didn't wait. I scrambled backward on elbows and knees, gasping. The crowbar clutched like a lifeline. My foot was free, burning with returning blood and that unnatural cold. The spinning phone light flared, catching the shadow recoiling, swirling violently like disturbed water. The sackcloth bundle seemed to shiver. The hatch. I lunged for the rectangle of gray sky. My fingers found the rough concrete edge. I hauled myself up, kicking, screaming wordlessly. Shoulders, torso, hips. I tumbled out onto the damp grass, gulping clean air that tasted like salvation. The crowbar clattered beside me. I rolled over, scrambling away from the open hatch on hands and knees, expecting the shadow to pour out, expecting cold hands to grab my legs again. I stared at the dark hole. Silence. Only my ragged breathing and the frantic hammering of my heart. No gurgle. No hiss. Just that terrible, waiting darkness. My ankle throbbed. I looked down. 5 livid, purpling bruises circled it, perfect ovals where fingers had been. Ice crystals glittered faintly on my skin in the weak afternoon light. I scrubbed frantically at them with my sleeve. They melted, leaving only the bruises and a deep, penetrating chill. The notebook. It lay beside me on the grass where I'd dropped it when I was pulled down. I snatched it up, hugging it to my chest like a shield. Proof. My only proof against Viridian. I staggered to my feet, legs trembling. The house loomed, silent and malevolent. The nailed-shut hatch was a wound in its side. I couldn't stay. Couldn't drive. Not shaking like this. I fumbled for my phone. Still working. Still linked to Viridian's network? I didn't care. I dialed the only number that felt like a lifeline. Viridian Security Emergency. Intruder. I gasped, the word barely audible. Under the house. It attacked me. It's still there. Send help. Now. I gave the address, my voice cracking. The hatch. It was nailed shut. They nailed me in. This time, the response was different. No board dismissal. A cold, efficient voice. Remain outside the structure. Do not approach. Assistance is en route. Viridian protects. The line went dead. Protects? They'd sold me the damn house. They'd ignored me. They'd sealed me in. The rage surged again, hot and cleansing against the terror. I clutched the notebook tighter. The names. The schedule. Viridian knew. They had to know. They arrived in minutes. Not 2 men. 6. Black Viridian security SUVs, silent as ghosts, blocking the driveway. Men in tactical gear poured out, faces obscured by helmets and visors. No insignia. Just the green slash of Viridian on their shoulders. Efficient. Silent. Weapons held ready. The leader, taller than the others, approached. His visor was up, revealing cold, assessing eyes. No recognition. Report. I babbled. The crawlspace. The nest. The notebook. The schedule. The figure on the camera. The nailed-shut hatch. Being dragged down. The shadow. The bone. The grip. The bruises. I shoved the notebook at him. Their names. Viridian names. They knew. They knew. He took the notebook without looking at it. Handed it to another man without a word. His eyes scanned the house, the broken light, the severed camera mount, the open crawlspace hatch. He gestured sharply. 2 men moved towards the hatch, weapons raised. Powerful flashlights pierced the gloom. One knelt, peering in. Clear, he called after a tense moment. His voice echoed slightly. No movement. Debris only. Animal den, likely. Animal? I shrieked, pointing at my bruised ankle. That was no raccoon. It spoke. It said, Viridian knows. The leader's eyes flicked to my ankle. His expression didn't change. Stress hallucinations are common in traumatic encounters. Standard protocol. We will sweep the premises. He nodded to the others. They moved towards the house, breaching the front door with smooth, practiced efficiency. Hallucinations. I spat. Checked the hatch frame. The nails. They were hammered from the outside. After I saw the figure. After they took the camera. One of the men near the hatch ran a gloved hand over the frame. Old nails, sir, he reported flatly. Corroded. Been here years. Probably original to the structure. Sealed it shut for pests. My blood ran cold. Years? Impossible. I saw them, shiny and new, just hammered. I felt the hammer blows sealing me in. You're lying, I accused, pointing at the leader. Viridian's lying. You're covering it up. What's under there? Who are those names? I lunged for the notebook in the other man's hand. The leader moved faster than I thought possible. A gloved hand clamped on my upper arm, gentle but unbreakable. You are in shock, sir, he stated, his voice devoid of warmth. You require medical evaluation. Viridian provides comprehensive employee care. Standard procedure. I don't want your procedure. I want the truth. I struggled, but his grip was iron. The other men watched impassively. The ones who entered the house came out, shaking their heads. Clear. No signs of intrusion. Minor disarray consistent with wildlife. It was a wall. A smooth, impenetrable wall of Viridian efficiency, erasing everything. Denying everything. Rewriting reality. The notebook was gone, tucked into a tactical vest. My proof vanished. The notebook. I pleaded. Give it back. It's mine. Potential evidence of a trespasser's activity, the leader said calmly. Viridian security will retain it for investigation. You will be debriefed. He guided me firmly, irresistibly, towards one of the SUVs. Medical first. For your safety. The drive was silent. The men didn't speak. The SUV was spotless, smelling of antiseptic and leather. They took me not to a hospital but to a gleaming, anonymous medical facility bearing the Viridian logo, the Viridian Corporate Wellness Center. Bright lights. Quiet halls. A doctor in a crisp white coat with a Viridian pin examined me with detached professionalism. He noted the bruises on my ankle, took blood, asked clipped questions about stress, sleep deprivation, recent trauma. He dismissed the ice crystals as perspiration in the cool environment. He didn't look at the notebook the security leader handed him briefly. He prescribed sedatives. Viridian cares for its assets, he said without smiling. An asset. Not a person. An asset that had malfunctioned. Seen too much. The whisper clung to the air like frost. No. It wasn't just sound. It was cold. A physical chill radiating from the wall behind the sofa, seeping into the sterile apartment air. My breath fogged. Impossible. 5th floor. Concrete and steel. Not damp earth. Not wood. I backed towards the door, my bruised ankle screaming with every step, the deep cold in my bone flaring. My hand fumbled for the knob. But from the inside. I hadn't locked it. Panic, sharp and bright, sliced through the lingering sedative haze. I twisted the deadbolt. Unlocked it. Twisted again. But the mechanism clicked with finality under my fingers, yet I hadn't moved it to lock. A sound from the kitchen, like a spoon dropped on tile. I whirled. The small kitchenette was empty. Spotless. Gleaming stainless steel and white laminate under the harsh fluorescent light. Nothing on the floor. My gaze darted to the counter. Beside the sink, the cheap metal spoon I'd used that morning for cereal lay perfectly centered on the countertop. It hadn't been there a moment ago. I'd left it drying on the rack. It jumped. An inch. Like something invisible had flicked it. See you? The whisper slithered from the kitchen vent this time. I lunged for the apartment door, wrenching the knob. It didn't budge. The deadbolt was still locked. I scrabbled at it, nails breaking, terror a live wire in my chest. The bolt slid back smoothly, soundlessly, under my trembling hand. I tore the door open and stumbled into the sterile hallway. Silence. Empty. Bright overhead lights humming. Sanity. I leaned against the cool wall, gasping. Just stress. Viridian's drugs. Henderson's madness creeping in. That's all. That had to be all. Down the hall, the elevator dinged. The polished steel doors slid open. Empty. Waiting. My escape. I pushed off the wall, limping towards it, refusing to look back at my apartment door. The hallway seemed longer than before. The lights flickered. Just a blip. I reached the elevator. Stepped inside. Pressed the button for the lobby. The doors began to close. Relief, thin and shaky, started to form. Then I saw it. Reflected in the polished steel of the closing doors. Behind me, in the hallway I'd just left, standing directly in front of my apartment door, the figure from the trail cam footage. Dark clothes, hood pulled low, shadowing the face, barefoot on the industrial carpet, utterly still, watching the elevator, watching me in the reflection. My heart stopped. The doors slid shut, cutting off the view. The elevator lurched downward. I pressed myself into the corner, eyes fixed on the seamless steel. Had it been real? A trick of the light? A hallucination? The whispering cold still pulsed in my ankle bone. The lobby was bustling. People coming home from work, chatting, the mundane noise a jarring contrast to the silent terror upstairs. I pushed through the glass doors, out into the city twilight. Noise. Traffic. People. Safety. I walked. Aimless. Putting distance between me and that building. That whisper. That figure. My phone buzzed in my pocket. A Viridian notification. Not security. HR. Final severance package documentation ready for review. Attached was a PDF. I opened it on a crowded street corner, the glow of my screen reflecting in passing car windows. Standard legalese. Termination effective immediately. Generous severance, contingent upon strict adherence to the non-disclosure agreement. Pages of clauses. Threats of litigation. Then, Appendix B, property inventory and release. A list of items Viridian had removed from the Sector Gamma house and would deliver to my apartment. Furniture. Boxes of clothes. Standard. Item 17. Assorted personal documentation. Box 3. Item 18. Miscellaneous electronics. Damaged trail camera unit GC 7782. My breath hitched. The trail cam. The one that captured the figure. Damaged. But they had it. They took it from the house. Proof. Corrupted data, they said. A glitch. But what if it wasn't? What if the damage was Viridian erasing it? But maybe not everything was gone. And item 17. Assorted personal documentation. Henderson's journals? My notebook? They took everything. They controlled the narrative. But they were sending it back to me. A trap? Or arrogance? I couldn't go back to the apartment. Not with that whisper in the walls. Not with the figure in the hall. I needed somewhere public. Somewhere bright. A coffee shop down the street glowed warmly. I ducked inside, the smell of roasted beans and chatter a temporary shield. I found a corner table, back to the wall, facing the door. My phone buzzed again. Another notification. Haven Properties, listing update. My stomach clenched. I opened it. Your property at Sector Gamma address has been sold. Sold? To? It vanished from the market. No views. No offers. And now, suddenly sold? The timestamp was 10 minutes ago, coinciding almost exactly with my flight from the apartment. The timing felt like a punch. Below the notification was a link. View closing details and new owner information, Viridian Secure Portal. My fingers trembled as I tapped it. It asked for my Viridian employee credentials. Terminated but not yet purged? I entered them, half expecting denial. Access granted. The screen loaded. A simple document. Bill of sale. Viridian Global Industries, seller, to Blackwood Holdings LLC, buyer. Purchase price, $1. $1. They sold my nightmare for $1. And the authorized representative for Blackwood Holdings LLC? A name that turned my blood to ice water. J. Henderson. J. Henderson. Terminated. Cause? Mental instability. The previous occupant. The madman. He wasn't mad. He was still involved. Or Viridian was using his name like a shield. A ghost signature. Below Henderson's name was the notary stamp. The name beside it was familiar, coldly efficient. Security Chief in Vance. The leader. The man in the suit who'd erased my reality in the wellness center. He'd notarized the sale of the house to a dead man's LLC for $1. It was a message. The taunt. We own everything. Even your madness. Even your ghost. A notification popped up over the document. Your belongings delivery is en route to your apartment. ETA, 25 minutes. My apartment. Where the whisper waited. Where the figure stood. Where Viridian was sending Henderson's journals and the broken trail cam. Delivering the past, the proof, and the horror straight to the place where the entity had followed me. I couldn't let them deliver it there. I couldn't be there when they did. The thing in the walls, it might react. It might show itself. Or worse, the delivery might be Vance and his men coming to finish the cleanup. I had to intercept it. I called the building superintendent, an older man named Frank who mostly ignored tenants. Frank? It's 5B. Listen, I'm not home, but I've got a delivery coming, big stuff, furniture, boxes. Can you just have them leave it all in the lobby storage room? I'll move it up later. Yeah, thanks, Frank. Really appreciate it. He grunted assent. Lazy. Perfect. The stuff would be dumped in the cramped, rarely used storage room off the lobby. Contained. Away from my walls. I waited in the coffee shop, nursing cold coffee, watching the clock. 25 minutes passed. Then 30. My phone stayed silent. No delivery notification. No call from Frank. Unease prickled my skin. I walked back towards my building, lingering across the street, hidden by a newsstand. A large, unmarked Viridian-branded box truck was parked haphazardly by the entrance, hazard lights blinking. 2 men in generic gray coveralls were unloading a dolly stacked with boxes and wrapped furniture. Frank stood by the lobby door, arms crossed, looking bored. They weren't taking it to the storage room. They were wheeling it straight towards the elevator bank. They were ignoring my instructions. Viridian's instructions overruled mine. They were taking it up. To my door. I watched, helpless, as the first dolly load disappeared into the elevator. Frank didn't stop them. The men returned for a second load. Then a third. Finally, the truck doors slammed shut. It drove away. Frank shuffled back inside. The stuff was upstairs. Outside my apartment. Or worse, inside. The hallway wasn't a hallway anymore. It was a throat. The dim, jaundiced light oozed over the walls, making the paint seem to sweat. The air thickened, tasting of grave dirt and spoiled meat, clogging my lungs. That terrible, wet gurgling wasn't a sound. It was the walls breathing. The spreading darkness on the carpet wasn't a stain. It was a pool of living shadow, deepening, widening, pulling the fallen clay bowl towards its inky center. The finger bone gleamed obscenely from the open box. Henderson's voice, a ragged sob trapped in the static of the entity's whisper, echoed in my skull. Help me. Then the other voice, ancient and cold, finished the thought. Join us. Panic screamed, but a deeper, colder instinct seized me. The bone. It was the key. It was the anchor. It was Henderson. The entity hadn't just followed its nest, it had followed him, the part of him it hadn't yet consumed. The part still screaming in the dark. I didn't think. I lunged, not away but towards the spreading shadow, towards the box. My hand closed around the cold, smooth finger bone. It vibrated with a faint, trapped hum, like a wasp in amber. The moment my skin touched it, the chorus of gurgles rose to a shriek. The shadow pool surged, tendrils of pure blackness lashing out like whips, snatching the clay bowl, pulling it under the surface with a sickening glorp. The bone burned with sudden, intense cold in my palm, searing through the lingering numbness in my ankle. Henderson's voice roared in my mind, pure terror. No. Don't let it take me again. The shadow tendrils whipped towards me, towards the bone. The hallway lights surged violently, then died completely, plunging us into absolute blackness. Only the faint, sickly glow of the shadow pool illuminated anything, a circle of hellish twilight. The cold radiating from the bone was the only thing keeping the suffocating dark at bay, a tiny shield against the crushing pressure of the entity's presence. Viridian. The name was a curse, a lifeline, a target. They did this. They woke it. They fed it. Henderson. They sold the grave and nailed the lid shut. Rage, cold and absolute, crystallized. Viridian didn't get to bury their debts. Not anymore. The bone wasn't just Henderson's prison. It was a connection. A tether through him, back to the source. Back to Viridian. The entity wasn't just in the hallway. It was in Viridian. In the land they poisoned, the secrets they buried, the lies they built their empire on. The bone vibrated, humming with Henderson's trapped resonance. And something deeper. A location. A pull. Not Sector Gamma. Somewhere else. Somewhere central. Somewhere Viridian thought was safe. The shadow tendrils struck. I threw myself sideways, rolling behind the plastic-wrapped sofa. The tendrils hit the wall where I'd been, sinking into the plaster with a wet crunch, leaving behind spreading patches of damp, black rot. The bone's cold flared in my hand, a beacon in the dark, guiding me. Not out. The fire stares. Concrete. Steel. Less earth. Less them. I scrambled on hands and knees, the bone clutched like a shard of ice, the entity's gurgling shriek filling the hallway behind me. I hit the stairwell door, shoulder first, bursting through into the cold, echoing shaft. Silence. Blessed, temporary silence. Only the frantic hammering of my heart and the bone's insistent, icy hum. 5 flights. My ankle screamed, the bruises pulsing with the bone's rhythm. Down past the 4th floor, the 3rd. The pull intensified. Stronger. Deeper. Towards the basement. Towards the building's roots. The lobby was empty. Frank's little office dark. The streetlights outside bled through the glass doors. Normal world. So close. But the bone pulled me away. Towards a heavy, unmarked metal door beside the service elevator, basement access. Viridian property management only. It was locked. Heavy deadbolt. Industrial strength. Viridian's seal was stamped on the lock plate. Of course. They owned the building. They owned the ground it stood on. The bone flared, painfully cold. Henderson's voice, desperate. The key. In my pocket. The other pocket. What pocket? I had nothing. Then I remembered. The hoodie. The one from the crawlspace nest. Viridian had boxed up everything. I looked back towards the stairwell door. From the gap beneath it, a slick, black ooze was slowly seeping into the lobby, spreading across the polished floor like spilled oil. No time. I lunged for the stack of my belongings, still partially blocking the hallway entrance. The box labeled bedroom. I tore it open, frantically digging through folded clothes. Rough fabric. The dark hoodie. I grabbed it, shoved my hand into the pocket I'd found the gas receipt in. Empty. The other pocket. My fingers brushed cold metal deep in the opposite pocket. A single, old-fashioned, heavy key. Stamped with the same Viridian V as the basement lock. The black ooze was pooling, rising, forming tendrils that quested towards me. The gurgling vibrated through the floor. I jammed the key into the basement lock. It turned with a heavy clunk. I yanked the door open. Dank, cold air smelling of mildew and machinery washed out. Concrete steps descended into utter darkness. The shadow surged. I threw myself through the doorway, slamming the heavy metal door shut behind me just as a whip of darkness cracked against the closing gap. The lock engaged automatically with a final thud. I stood in pitch blackness, breathing in stale air, the bone humming like a live wire in one hand, Henderson's key clutched in the other. The hum was overwhelming now, pulling me down the stairs. The air grew colder, damper. The smell of wet earth and rot returned, stronger than ever, mixed with the tang of oil and concrete. My phone light was weak, but it showed a vast, low-ceilinged space, boilers, pipes, electrical panels. Viridian infrastructure. And at the far end, partially concealed behind a stack of old paint cans bearing the Viridian logo, a section of the concrete floor looked different. Newer. Smoother. A perfect rectangle, roughly the size of a grave. The bone tugged my hand towards it. Henderson's silent scream in my mind was a constant, high-pitched whine of terror. I walked forward, the cold from the bone sinking deeper into my flesh, reaching my bones. The new concrete slab was pristine except for one thing. In its center, embedded while the concrete was wet, was a small, chipped clay bowl. Identical to the one now lost to the entity upstairs. Empty. Waiting. This was it. The anchor point. Not under the house in the woods, but here. Deep under a Viridian-owned building in the heart of the city. Where the earth was still earth, even under concrete. Where they tried to contain it, or perhaps, feed it something they couldn't bury in Sector Gamma. The bone in my hand pulsed. The slab thrummed in response. Henderson's voice broke through, clearer, closer. Please, it wants payment. Payment. The word echoed. Viridian's payment was flesh. Henderson's flesh. His sanity. His life trapped in a bone. The entity's gurgle vibrated up through the slab, a hungry, impatient sound. It knew I was here. It knew I had the last piece. The heavy basement door groaned behind me. Metal shrieked. The industrial lock was bending. Black ooze seeped around the edges, dripping onto the top step. It had followed. It was coming. I looked at the bone. Henderson's silent plea was agony. I looked at the clay bowl set in concrete. Viridian's solution. Their containment. Their bloody transaction. The bone vibrated with a violent cold. I didn't drop the bone into the bowl. Instead, I raised the crowbar I'd instinctively carried from the apartment, the Viridian logo cold against my palm. With all the strength fueled by terror and fury, I swung it down, not at the shadow seeping under the door, but at the pristine concrete slab surrounding the clay bowl. The impact jarred my arms. Concrete chips flew. A spiderweb of cracks radiated from the point of impact. I swung again. And again. Ignoring the rising shriek from the entity, ignoring the black tendrils now snaking across the basement floor towards me, ignoring the bone's freezing burn. I hammered the Viridian seal on the slab. I smashed the clay bowl embedded within it. Shards of fired clay exploded. The gurgling shriek became a roar of primal fury. The entire basement floor trembled. The pipes overhead rattled violently. But the spreading cracks in the slab weren't just cracks. Darkness welled up from them. Not the entity's oil-slick shadow, but a different darkness. Deeper. Older. The darkness of disturbed, sacred earth. The darkness Viridian had tried to pave over. The end. Like, share and subscribe.